I'm proud to call on our next speaker, Howard Nations, who I assume many of you know. He's a former leader of this association, served on the executive committee as an officer from 1990 through 1995. He is board certified by the Texas Board of Legal Specialization as both a personal injury trial lawyer and civil trial lawyer. He is board certified on the national level as a civil trial advocate by the National Board of Trial Advocates and is certified as a diplomat of trial advocacy by the National College of Advocacy. I've seen Howard lecture for years. He's a wonderful speaker and probably needs very little other introduction. So with that, I'm going to turn the podium over to Howard.
Good morning. I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes about Broadspire and about the relationship that we have with Broadspire vis-a-vis our potential clients as well as our client base. There are a lot of people out there that are being misled by Broadspire into believing that they do not need an attorney. So I want to go through what Broadspire is telling them, what they're seeing from Broadspire, and see what some of our responses to that probably should be. The reimbursement program and the consent forms, details regarding how DePuy uses the reimbursement program to its advantage. We have to know how to counter what they're telling the potential clients because they are misleading them gravely, as well as clients. So I want to talk about that and the plaintiff's response to the reimbursement program. DePuy offers, they come in and give the impression, and I hear it over and over talking to prospective clients, well, why do I need a lawyer if DePuy is going to pay, I've got a bad hip, they're going to replace it with a good hip, no harm, no foul, a lot of trouble, but why do I need a lawyer and pay a fee on that if they're going to do this? So we need to understand exactly what they are doing. Reasonable and customary cost, treatment for services, monitoring device, their revision surgeries associated with the ASR devices reimburse only out-of-pocket expenses. Now, but what they're really doing, as you know, is they're paying the difference between insurance. They're paying pennies on the dollar. They're paying the difference between what your insurance will pay. They'll pay your out-of-pocket expenses and so forth. But here's the point. And what we tell our clients and what we tell our prospective clients is that the damage in this case, what you're facing is not just a simple hip replacement. This is not about you taking out one device, putting in another device, and all's right with the world. In order to counter what Broadspire is telling our clients and our prospective clients, I tell them, particularly prospective clients, when I'm trying to sign them up and they're saying, well, but Broadspire is taking care of everything. Why do I need you? You tell them this. First of all, I like to show prospective clients that I understand what their problem is. So I'll talk to them very differently than Broadspire does. Broadspire will come in and say, well, you need a new device, or you need surgery, or you need testing, or you need this, and we're going to pay for it, so fine, no problem. Sign the form. Sign the form. Every third sentence is sign the form. And I've had clients tell me, oh, no, all they want me to do is sign the form. Okay, so what we do instead is we talk to them in such a way that they see that we understand their problem. I talk to them about the damages that they're having, and I talk to them in terms of what symptoms are you having? Has the pain in the hip area, has it reached the groin yet? Are you having pain in the back? Are you having pain on the opposite side? If you have a right side hip implant, are you having pain on the left side? Are you having pain in the left knee? Because the major damage here, a major damage item that's going to arise out of this is going to be the biomechanical consequences, the offset of what happens when you have an injury on one side and you start giving on that side, and then you end up with more and more wear and tear on the other side. And when you talk to clients in those terms, or prospective clients in those terms, and the response is, well, yes, as a matter of fact, I do have that. Well, yes, I do have that. And then you can ask, well, what is your doctor telling you about? Are they saying that it's arthritis? Are they saying it's bursitis? Or what other itis are they saying it is? And you're the person, you become the person who really, that they identify, you can identify yourself as understanding their problem, because those are the problems that they're having. Then ask them, are you getting the clicking yet? Do you hear the clicking noise yet? Do you feel looseness? Has anybody explained to you what's causing this? And then I like to go into an explanation with them, something Broadspire does not do, about trying to allay some of their fears about all the foolishness they read on the internet about they're going to wake up with cancer tomorrow morning. So I think it's important that we make them understand this point. We're not suing your doctor. If you retain us, this is not about the doctors. As a matter of fact, Depew is claiming this is the fault of the doctors. We're on the same side with the doctors. We are saying we have experts who are prepared to explain that this is not the fault of the doctors, it's the fault of the design. And so that takes the fear out of a lot of them right there, because they don't want to get crosswise with their doctors. Then you have to explain. This is a very important point that you have to explain to them to get them out of the hands of Depew. Out of the hands of Broadspire. And that is, it is absolutely essential that you have an attorney before you have revision surgery. And the reason is because, of course, of the access and control of the explanted device and the tissue and so forth that go with it. So they're asked to sign a consent form and obtain a claim number, and which allows them direct contact. They contact the clients directly. They obtain medical records. And then in this regard, I explained to them very simply this, and it's a fact. Any of you who are in ortho ever, or who've ever had cases with our defense counsel in this case, they do an absolutely excellent job. Bob Tucker is one of the most detail-oriented lawyers I've ever had on the other side of a case from me. And what they're doing, and your potential clients have to understand this, what Broadspire is doing with your medical records is not seeing what's wrong with you now or what they can do to help you, obviously. What they're doing is they're building a defense. They're starting to build a defense to your case right now, so that if you ever do come in and make a bigger claim, they will be able to show, no, this was some previous trauma, and you've had back problems this whole time. No, you've had hip problems this whole time. You had the original hip trauma that caused you to have the implant in the first place. And trust me, for your own advice as the attorneys handling these cases, you better know these files backwards and forwards. You better know these medical records of these clients backwards and forwards and thoroughly, because I promise you, Bob Tucker will know it. That this is Bob's real forte. He has an excellent staff of nurse paralegals who go through in great detail. They make reports to him, and when you come to sit down with Bob to negotiate these cases, he will know as much about your client's medical past as you do, and he'll have it very slanted in his direction. So you explain to clients or potential clients, this is why you absolutely do not want to let them have access to your medical records. And I always make the point that Broadspire is not just trying to get your medical records. They're not asking for an authorization to get your medical record for this surgery or for this case. They want to get your entire medical history. That quite often will put a stop to them wanting to work with Broadspire very much. Back to the revision, a lot of people, I've talked to a number of people, say, well, I'm going to have the revision. Let me see how the revision goes, and then I'll and see if Broadspire does everything they say they're going to. And then after the revision, if I feel like I need a lawyer then, well, you'll be glad to sign up with you at that time. You have to make the point very firmly, that is too late. So we explain the explantation protocol that we have in place. I personally use Robson Forensics. We have the protocol set up. We have the pre-surgical protocol. We have the protocol for obtaining the explanted device. And I explain to the clients, or the prospective clients, it is essential that we get access to the device. It's essential that our experts talk to the doctor ahead of time. They talk to the hospital ahead of time. We send the kit. We explain to them that we want not only the device, but we want the device without it being cleaned. We want the tissue on the device. And our experts call and tell the doctor exactly how they want it. We get the tissue. We can then test the tissue as well as the device. We get it in a box, FedEx, ready to go. All they do is put it in there, send it to us, and then I explain chain of custody. And the importance of chain of custody and the fact that we will have it later to do any additional testing we need, but we will have control of it. And then there are always horror stories you can tell them, which are very, very true, about people who have come to us after revision, and all of a sudden we can't find their explanted devices anywhere. Nobody's quite sure what happened to them. And we know what happened to them, but as often as not, Depew claims we didn't get it. We have no idea. So it's important. When they understand the importance of having the device, the most important piece of evidence in the case as far as they're concerned, then that will help us get them out of the hands of Broadspire and into the hands where they can be represented. Their best interest can, in fact, be represented. We also tell them, in order to offset Broadspire's claims of we're going to take care of everything, the real danger, the damages in this case, aside from the biomechanical problems that you have, is when you talk about the future damages in this case, and I'm not going to go into this because we're going to have somebody else talk about damages, but I talked to a client about it only from this viewpoint. The target demographic on this product is the active person who's age 40 to 50 years old who needs the metal on metal because they want to remain active, and this is designed to last for 15 years. We're finding most of our failures, we have around at 200 cases right now, and we're finding most of our failures occurred between 2 and 3 years. Almost universally, our failures occurred between 2 and 3 years. And so you get someone who's 40 years old, and they've had the device, and it's supposed to last them for 15 years till they're 55. Then they get another one, which lasts them till 70. And I can tell you, once you're 70, hell, it doesn't matter anyway, because life's pretty much over. So, but what actually happens, you get it at 40. And then at 43, you find yourself having 2 more procedures. You have an explantation and another implantation. Now you're 43, but what's happened to you? Because the real damage that's occurring here, the real damage that's occurring out of metallosis is this, that we know is occurring out of metallosis is this. It's the damage to the operative field. The chromium cobalt is damaging, is causing necrotic tissue, it's causing deteriorating bone, and so you're having damage in the immediate operative field. So you go in and you have you have to excise the tissue, and then you have the bone problems. Okay, so now you've had the original hip surgery. I mean, the original hip problem that caused you to get the implant in the first place. Then you've got the implantation. It's a big surgery. And it's a major insult to the operative field, to the body. So now you've got the next area of damage, which is the damage that is occurring from the necrosis and from the chromium and cobalt damaging the area. And then you have the next insult to the area, which is the explantation. Then you got the implantation. Now you got all that. That's where you are, and you're only 43 years old. because this thing didn't last 15 years as it was supposed to. Now you've got a greatly weakened area in terms of, regardless of what they put in there, the odds of the next one lasting for 15 years, and Herb could address this much better than I could, but the odds of the next one lasting 15 years are very small, because the field just won't handle it. So you get the next one, even if it lasts for 10 years. Now you're 53 years old, and you've got another failure, and now you got to go through all this again. Another explantation, another implantation. That's where your damage is. And now you get to the next one, and you're 63, and there comes a point, and it's a very individualized situation, but there comes a point where you're no longer you're no longer a good candidate for surgery to have explantation, implantation of a new device. Who's going to handle that for you? Is Broadspire going to cover that for you? No. You settle with Broadspire on your own. They're not going to be there any longer at all. And so Broadspire, there were big success rates in previous litigation where they did this type of thing, where they had a very large percentage of cases settled without the clients ever getting attorneys. And that's what Broadspire is trying to accomplish here. So it's very important, if we're going to, we owe it to these prospective clients to make sure that they understand that what they're facing in the future, and there's a lot more to this than just having a hip and getting a new hip in place, and you're all good to go. We also have a number of cases that involve bilaterals, and when you have this bilateral situation, then the biomechanical difficulties in a bilateral ASR are exponentially increased, simply because for obvious reasons. The other thing, I explained this much to clients to make them feel better about the whole carcinogenic effect of chromium and cobalt. If you've looked on the internet, you just think that if you've got a hip device in you, you're going to have cancer. If you've got a DePuy ASR, you're going to have cancer. Well, first of all, I explained about the misconceptions that arise out of Aaron Brockovich, because that was about a chromium case, but that was hexavalent chromium, which is a known carcinogenic. This is not hexavalent chromium. This is trivalent chromium. So try to ease their mind. There's no science at this point that there's going to be that there's any carcinogenic effect of the metallosis. So I try to make them feel a little better about that. The other thing is the failure rate. The people, let's talk for a moment about the people who are not, those people that you're talking to who say, well, I have an ASR, but I really don't have any problems with it, so I don't know why I should sign a contract, or why do I need an attorney? There was one case that was reported at the medical session in San Diego, orthopedic session in San Diego, where a doctor reported from Britain. He said he had a client who was a very active, athletic, triathlete type of male who said, I am doing all sorts of very active things here, and I have a defective hip implant device in my hip. I want it out. But he was asymptomatic. He said, I don't care. I got a defective hip. I don't want to find out about it when I'm halfway down a ski slope. I want it out. So the doctor says, okay, fine, let's take it out. The doctor opens up. He reported this to the orthopedic conference. He opens the hip, and his words, I found a toxic waste site. A toxic waste site when I got in there. So what do you do with these clients? Because you're going to have this situation. At what point, if they get a failure 2 years from now, of course, Bob Tucker, great lawyer, is going to come in and say, well, you had all kind of notice. You had all kind of notice. And so the statute of limitations started to run on you some time ago. So we're signing those clients up, and we're keeping them, and we're telling them that they need to stay away from Broadspire. They need to get an attorney. They need to be signed up, and then we will test them on some regular basis. But and we'll check the chromium and cobalt readings on a regular basis, and then we can even sometimes we'll have our experts confer with their doctors to find out about other symptoms aside from just chromium cobalt, the clicking, the looseness, and the pain location around various parts of the body. But Broadspire is trying to do what they are being very, very well paid to do, which is keep them out of our hands. The people who have problems need representation. They need representation. We know that, and I think we have an obligation to try to help them know that, so that we can be of true benefit to them. Broadspire, one incidental thing about Broadspire, I've talked to Tucker about this, and I said, what exactly is your relationship with Broadspire? Yeah, I know. And he said, no, we don't have any. They have their thing over here they're doing, and we have our thing over here we're doing, which is very nice, because that means Broadspire is not over here working with the law firm. They do not have the confidentiality. They don't have the privileges of law firms attaching to the work they're doing. So you may have some very interesting correspondence show up in discovery from Broadspire when this whole thing comes down to getting into some serious discovery.